Assalamu alaikum, Molami. Dengan Jeff Yuduglu. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, listeners. Welcome to the Legal Link here on Vibes FM 6.1. This afternoon, we focus on a pressing issue, civic life, local governance, democracy, and civic participation, civic lessons from the Alcalá controversy. With me in the studio today, I have a lawyer and a barrister of the Supreme Court. Before we proceed with our discussion for today, I would like to humbly, it's my pleasure to introduce um, I'm the this program this afternoon. One work on issues related to education, civic rights, and so on and so forth, and how Act applies to situations like the Alcalo stamp controversy, which we are going to dissect this. Of course, we will also be looking at a lot of things, including what lessons citizens can draw from participation in democracy. Um, or Mr. Jamanka, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Feel free. All right. So thank you very much. Um, we at Vibes FM 106.1 on the link hour. And just for the purpose of clarity, the purpose of our discussion today would be, and I have Esa Jamanka in the building today to help these issues. But just before leading listeners some basic background about the controversy surrounding the Alcalo stamp. Of course, most of us are aware that Babukar Nyang, the Alcalo of Ngayen, Ngayen, yes, I have a problem of pronouncing the village. So Ngayen said his stamp was taken on the 8th of April by regional authorities through the district chief, following allegation that it had been misused. The government later confirmed the action in a statement, saying the seal had been temporarily withdrawn and placed in secured custody, quote unquote, secured custody, protect the integrity of the ongoing supplementary voter registration exercise. And of course, at this point, I can only be grateful to Freya newspaper because I'm reading from their excerpt. So thank you, Freya, for that. Under the Election Act 2025, Gambians without formal identification documents, as we know, such as birth certificate, national ID card, can register to vote if they obtain an attestation signed and stamped by an alcalo or a CFO. However, in communities like Gain Sanjan, where access to formal identification remain limited, this process is often the only path for many of them who want to be included into the electoral process, given that this year, 2026 December, we're heading to the polls. But with the stamp now out of reach, this process has come to a halt at a time when this excerpt was taken. I'm not sure of what the developments are, but our concern is what lessons can we draw from this scenario. The government statement did not actually provide detailed evidence of abuse beyond noting that the stamp had been um, used in a manner inconsistent with the intended purposes. It also confirmed the Alcalo had acknowledged leaving the seal in the care of his son. Of course, observers say the dispute reflect deeper tension around the conduct of the voter registration process. And then we have seen in a joint statement, civil society groups, including Gambia Participate, the Electoral Watch Committee, of course, and recently I was following, I have seen UMC, United Movement for Change, also talking about it. And they have said they have found no evidence that the stamp had been used to clarify ineligible voters, and so on and so forth. So instead, they suggest the action may have been influenced by perceived political affiliation. They warn that the seizure could effectively disenfranchise eligible voters, including Guyana, by preventing them from obtaining the required attestation documents. Now, but what is very interesting is the timing is particularly very sensitive. As we know, we are heading to the polls in December. The Independent Electoral Commission began a supplementary voter registration exercise as of April 8th, and it's scheduled to run up to the 21st of May 2026. In Gayan, one of the nearest registration centers is reported to be in Kantaba or Kataba Alaji Omar, where registration is expected to last a few days, limited window open for them. So without this time, villagers really say daily life has been a very disruptive scenario for them. So for now, residents in Gayan remain in limbo at the time of this report, and they were caught between administrative action and electoral timelines. Civil society groups, like I said, have called on the government to immediately release the stamp and allow any dispute over the voter eligibility to be handled through a proper legal channel, such as the courts. They also renewed calls for broader electoral reforms, including removing the requirement for Alcalo attestation altogether and expanding access to national identity documents to prevent similar disputes in the future. So that is just a background of those of us who are listening and may not know what the whole background of the topic or the discussion is all about. That is it, listeners. Now, I have Mr. Jamanka, like I introduced earlier. It was here. Council. I'll call you Council today. Let's begin with the basics. Could you please kindly explain to our listeners the role of an alcalo on the Gambian law and how that role intersects with the Local Government Act 2000?
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Samajao, for having me. It is indeed a pleasure to come here once again to discuss about owning issues. Of course, uh, Samajao is, is someone, when you talk about civic education, he actually is a champion. And I'm grateful that we are sharing this platform once again to discuss about issues that people need to understand. So, yes, when you look at the position of Alcalo, the position of Alcalo is not only traditional, it is actually establishment of the law. If you look at section 141 of the Local Government Act, I mean the Local Government Act 2002, section 141 stated that there shall be for each village an alcalo who shall be the head person or the head of the village. So the person of the alcalo is basically recognized by Section 141 of the Local Government Act, and among the functions of the alcalo is representing the village in governance, supporting administrative process, of course, just like what just recently happened, and also assisting in confirming the identity of residents. So these are just some of the functions of the alcalos, but they actually go beyond this. But in as much as the act is concerned, these are some of the few functions of the alcalo. And people, of course, we need to understand the position of alcalo is not only traditional, but it's also a creation of the law by virtue of Section 141 of the Local Government Act. Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. I will be multitasking because I want our followers to develop so to catch up with what we are doing. Boka yi ñu ngi lay jaajëfal fii si Vibes FM 106.1. Ñu ngi tey nag toog fii man maa ngi amee suma gan bi fii Asa Jamanka mu nekk lawyer boo xam ne mu ngi si Gambia tey nag suñu waxtaan bi mu ngi si benn wuleen bul ne fan yu passé alkalo stamp bi maanaam alkalo bi against village mooy fële sa Sierra dal di woon nañ nangu stampam bi mooy tampé pour ñi nga xam ne dañ bëgg a bokk si élection bi si ni by December 2025 waaye nag loi bi mu ngi wax ne su nekkee ne amuloo birth certificate maanaam kayitu juddu wala amuloo passeport wala lu demee noonu loo mun a wone pour nga bokk si élection bi rek mooy nga isi sa attestation léegi nag dal dinañ gis ne si fan yu passé am boobu noonu nga xam ne moom moo war a dëggal ne nit nga xam ne mu ngi wax ne moom mu ngi tuddee wala si gox boobu noonu pour mun a bokk si élection bi ndax dinañ ko mën te bu ñu wax laaxee ak government buñ gëstuwee gis nañ ne government bi lu ñu wax mooy stamp boobu dañ ko nangu rek pour make sure ne élection buñ jógee ñu jaar yoon parce que gis nañ ne xam mel ni am na ay xeet yu jaar ci fa xaw a jaar so bu ko defee loolu lañ nekk di waxtaane si kanam nag xam naa nañ dal di laay bi waaye am naa sa jamono dal dina dal la ñuy wax si gàttal rek lan mooy fan la alkaalo yaa sosoo si suñu luwaay dal dina code loi bi wax na loi bu nga xam ne moom moo càmbar mbiri alkaalo Gambia mu ngi nekk section 142 141 142 dem si kaw wax na ne alkaalo lu bokk si alkaalo njëriñam wala bu la xam ne luwaa bi dafa ko sas mooy alkaalo dafa war a nekk koo xam ne dafa war a di dimbale village-am benn si mooy dafa war a promote lu ñu wax good order mooy dafa war a di dimbale society bu mu nekk wala village bu mu nekk mu dal di make sure ne jàmm ak salaam mu fa dal di jaar wala mu ngi faa dox so su ko defee tamit am na loo xam ne alkaalo war na ko def mooy muy promote lu ñuy wax gender and economic development xale bu nekk ñu wala flastas nga make sure ne sa dëkk yaa ngee fas yéene yaa ngee góorgóorlu daal pour nga gis ne sa dëkk mu ngeen dem si kanam si comme si yokkuwaay si yokkute beneen bi mooy safeguard the traditions and customs mooy alkaali dañ leen sa silwaa ñu nga xam ne ñu nekk ñu nga xam ne ñoom ñoo war a sàmm suñu aada ak suñu cosaan ba tax na ñoom ñoo nekk suñu gëstuwaay su demee si affaire yi aada ak cosaan beneen bi mooy si gàttal rek mooy ñoom tamit war nañ nekk ñi nga xam ne dañ war a di liggéey ak district council bi mooy dañ war a di lëkkaloo ak district council district authority bi ba make sure ne bu nga xam ne mu ngay demee si yokku mu ngay dem si fu ñu jaaree beneen bi mooy exercise all power vested in the village alkali bi moo nekk koo xam ne la jox lu nga sàmm lépp lu nga xam ne mu ngi dal di nekk si sa biir dëkk beneen bi mooy enforce loi bu nga xam ne national assembly bi mooy suñu léegi député dañ ko càmbar beneen bi bu si boo xam mooy loi bu nga xam ne sax nekkul national assembly bi ñoom ñoo ko càmbar waaye loi bu nga xam ne rek loi la te institution bu ko dal di càmbar si biir dëkk bi nekk ñu ko wax bàyyiloo loolu tamit bokk na si seen wareef bokk na tamit si wareefi alkaalo mooy dafa war a di promote lu wax environmental health and sanitation alkaalo bu nekk war na pour lu make sure ne dëkk boo warti nekk yaa ngi osa nit ñi ne ko lépp setal daal nga gis ne dëkk baa ngi set jaar yoon beneen bi mooy ñu make sure sport xam naa ne nag alkaalo yu bari moom affaire sport moom waxuñ si dara waaye loolu tamit bokk na si lu leen sax nga mooy dañu war a di ay ñuy encourage wala ñuy promote affaire sport maanaam affaire yëngatu yaram daal muy dem football muy dem basketball ak mel ni bëre ak soore foofu so si gàttal daal loolu moo nekk luñ fi dal di tënka so su ko defee si kanam nañ ubbi line si waa ñu ngi waxtaanee tey controverse mooy maanaam waxtaanee boo xam ne am na solo lool jëm ci affaire yi fan bu nga xam ne government bi dañ ko dal di dox si alkaalu game so su ko defee ñu dal di xuus si waxtaan bi Mr. Jamanka, I have another question for you regarding this. Of course, the biggest question now is you have already led us to the rule of Alkalu. And I want to ask the question who has the authority to actually, under the Gambian law, who has the authority to take the Alkalu stuff in this case?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Jao. Like I said, I will focus more on the provision in as much as the local government act is concerned. Mr. Jao, this issue is one that has gathered momentum in the arena of debate. So many people are saying different things actually. But if you look at the local government act, like I stated earlier on, the Alcalo, the appointment of Alcalo basically is the secretary of no, the secretary of state. That in this act would mean district. So minister of local government basically is responsible for the appointment. But when it comes when there is a big legal question as to whether the governor has the right or has the powers to assist uh, the stamp of the alcalde. Because once your stamp is alcalo, because like we traditional position, but it is also a and by virtue of it being the creation of the law, there is something that is given to you, and you are in custody of the stamp. So once the stamp is taken away from you, uh, impliedly you are no longer basically serving as alcalo, which is of course debatable. Now, if you look at 145, an alcalo may be removed from office by the Secretary of State, that is the Minister for Local Government in this act. And on the his or her office of function or any cost, whether arising from is the unsound mind or other consideration. So here the question would be, of course, I'm not trying to preempt you, but the question here would be whether the CISO basically falls within this, you know, minister can basically justify that the Alcalo, his act was can be considered to be misconduct, and also whether he is not capable. The system that the fact that they have set a precedent, is of course subjective. If I say it's a bad precedent, but the person of the Alcalo to a greater extent is now politicized. That is to say, most of the time, Alcalos reside in other words, and where most of these organizations basically are in Sanyal and not. Was it because the Alcalos of Sanyal is stated one is affiliated to a party, or is it because of the fact that he only gave out his stamp to his son?
The English language. Maybe this time around I will flow with the English. So it's getting interesting, like I said. Of course, you would agree with me that the position of an alcalo is a political position
Okay.
by virtue of the laws that we have. Of course, that does not mean alcalos have to be politicians. To some extent, I think I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I have questions related to that later in the discussion. But basically, what I want to begin with is: do you think, from a legal perspective, this decision by the government is right?
Yes, if we go by the provision of section 145, we need to ask ourselves is what would amount to misconduct? The Alcalo handing over his stamp to his son, would that amount to misconduct, basically? And if you also look at it, the fact that the position of the Alcalo is a legal creation that is recognized by the law, can such position be delegated? The Alcalo being the office of the Alcalo being personal and also public office, can it be delegated to someone who does not have the local standard to basically act on behalf of the village in as much as section 141 is concerned?
I know you get important and you bring in the jargons now. Local standard. That
Mm.
would be too big for my listeners. So I would want you to be mindful that our listeners are not maybe legally minded, and then maybe polish their grammar a bit to a level that you everyone can get to understand. Now, what I want to just highlight here is this is a really interesting discussion, given the fact that we are heading to
Election.
2025,
Yes.
2026 election December. I'm still back, but and then this has happened. So I'm now looking at it from the perspective of the president. Don't you think this has
Yes.
set a precedent that really
Very well.
made us to recheck on our laws? Because
Very
if you look at the local government act, I think there is much to be decided.
Very well. Very well.
First and foremost, you have asked a question. For instance, is it right for the alcalde to delegate his authority to his son? I have seen a lot of situations where the alcalde is old, is very old.
Very well. Yes.
If you look at that, I have not been any assessment by the way, but I know majority of the alcalos in this country are way above 50 years or sometimes even 70.
That's very right.
And sometimes it gets to a point where I think, of course, by virtue of how we country from the colonial days to the post. Now paid salaries.
Yes.
But now, what I'm just trying to look at is from the perspective of the law.
Mm.
Don't you think this is
See, since it is now raising, should be what reform, and I think with it's also does not only rest on the hands of IEC. These local authorities are very, very important in making sure that, because cheating in election doesn't only start, does not only happen election day, but even the process that involved from voter registration down to voting, counting, and all that. So all these alcalos are also important stakeholders. So we should definitely have a clearly spelled out laws that will guide them. Clearly spell out laws that every single individual basically will understand fully. But when we look at the provision of Section 141, there is a particular city in the Gambia, let's say Banjul, is isolated. You
Mm.
understand?
Yeah.
Because they don't have alcalo. So now the question that begs an answer would be, the inhabitants of Banjul, in the event that they want to get this kind of things, this attestation, where would they get it from? Because we recently have seen that the mayor is, or the mayoress is not permitted to